Go ahead.
Great. It is 7:07 p.m. and we are here for our regularly scheduled meeting of April 6th, 2020. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise, and if you wouldn't mind turning your microphone to mute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call roll?
With pleasure, Mayor. Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Pappen.
Here.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rodriguez.
Here.
And Mayor Goethals.
Here. So I want to remind everyone that this is our third remote city council meeting. And so we're still getting used to this process, but anyone who wants to submit public comment during the public meeting can enter the portal at www.cityofsanmateo.org. At that point, you can go to where the meetings are and click on the Speak Up San Mateo. I believe I did it during the meeting last time. And so it's not that hard to sign up. You can submit your comments that way, and they will be read during the meeting. I would note also that many people have sent us emails on items appearing on the agenda, and we have received those emails and we have read them, but we're not going to reread them during the meeting. Let's see. So next, we're moving on to the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that, actually, Madam Clerk, would you read the consent agenda first?
With pleasure, Mayor. Consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. Item number 1, meeting minutes approval as amended. Item number 2, parking demand and objective standards and ordinance adoption. Item number 3, licensing and maintenance support services for enterprise resource planning software and agreement. Item number 4, basins 2 and 3 collection system improvements amendment. Item number 5, the 2020 bicycle master plan adoption. Item number 6, contracts with contingency component and update. Item number 7, planning contract coaching services and amendment. Item number 8, San Mateo Management Employee Association Memorandum of Understanding amendment. Item number 9, North Shoreview Flood Improvement Project bid rejection. And item number 10, Underground Flow Equalization System Project bid rejection.
Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of the City Council would like to have removed?
I do, Mayor.
Yes. Rick, what items would you like removed?
I'd like to pull items 9 and 10.
Okay. And is there anyone else who would like to pull any items? Madam Clerk, is there any member of the public who would like to pull any items on the consent agenda?
We have comments for item number 10 as of this moment, and but that item is being pulled anyway.
Right. So 1 through 8 and item 11. Do I have that right?
No, 11 is under public hearing, so just 1
so
through 10.
So just 1 through. So we will pull items 9 and 10. 1 through 8. Is there a motion for the consent agenda items 1 through 8?
So moved. I'd like to make a motion. So moved.
Second.
Got to be quicker. Okay, so the motion was made by Amarance Lee, the second by Rick. All those in favor, please say aye when you are called on by the clerk.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Aye.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rodriguez.
Aye.
Mayor Goethals.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
So the items 1 through 8 on the consent agenda pass unanimously. And do we go to items 9 and 10 now, or do we do public comment and then come back to items 9 and 10?
Generally, we usually go to the items removed from consent calendar first.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do that at this time. We'll start with item 9, then we'll go to item 10. Rick, you pulled these items. Would you like to first let us know why you pulled them, and then I believe Brad is on the call, and if we have questions for Brad or a presentation, we can go to that.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I can address both items with the same comments,
Okay.
which will save us some time. I have my own comments, but I'm going to read communication I got from the Carpenters Union today, because I and the Carpenters Union disagree with the process that's being used to make the contract for this job, which is the rejection of all bids, and then granting the Director of Public Works the allowance to go ahead and negotiate separately with the one low bidder. And so these comments are going to be apropos to that. Please accept this letter on behalf of the members of Carpenters Local 217, which represents working men and women in the city of San Mateo. Local 217 monitors local construction projects to help ensure that fair and open competitive bidding practices are utilized and that taxpayers get the best value for their tax dollars. The policies underlying our state's competitive bidding laws not only foster fairness among bidders, but also protect the public trust. Fair competitive bidding acts as a guard against favoritism, improvidence, extravagance, fraud, and corruption, to prevent the waste of public funds and to obtain the best result for the public. Competitive bidding laws are passed for the benefit and protection of the tax-paying public, not for the benefit and enrichment of bidders. Proper classification of these laws results in more responsible bidding, contractors bidding, and performing construction projects, reduced instances of health and safety problems, and projects completed on time and at the highest quality and value for the taxpayer dollar. The City of San Mateo is intending to adopt a resolution to reject all bids for the North Shoreview Flood Improvement Project and the UFAS project, as we call it, which is the storage tank, to item 10, to authorize the Public Works Director to negotiate the two contracts directly with Anderson Pacific Engineering. Local 217 understands the engineer's estimate was significantly lower than the bids. Therefore, we agree with the city staff recommendation to reject all bids. However, we think it would be in the best interest of the taxpayers and the city of San Mateo to pull off on the agenda the above items, to reject all bids, and to explore other options to make adjustments to the design and rebid the project. Thank you for your time and consideration. Local 217 would appreciate notification. So now, I have some additional comments that I want to make. Let me get to this document right here. These are questions that I have. First, a statement. I believe that to go forward with option 3 and allow the Director of Public Works to negotiate with the low bidder is in any case inherently unfair to all of the other bidders who spent time and money participating in the process. So I have some questions. What would be the subjects of discussion and or the questions asked during the possible negotiations? How long is this anticipated to take? Can we seek to further limit the change order allowance? Since change orders, and I read every single word in the entire bid package that I read, so it's about 54 pages. Since change orders, additive or deductive, can be negotiated and authorized up to 25% of the base contract value, would it be a deal breaker if Anderson Pacific seeks to recoup some of the money that they left on the table when they were bidding? They left 9% on the table for the levee improvement project and 10% on the table for the underground flow equalization system project. Finally, in fairness to all of the other bidders who will not have a chance to attempt to rearrange their bid so that it fits the needs of the city, I would point out that we need to ensure that Anderson Pacific is held in compliance with the California Subletting and Subcontracting Fair Practices Act, which is found in the California Public Contract Code, and I have all the divisions and everything. This
Rick,
prohibits, last sentence, John.
Go ahead.
Which prohibits bid shopping by holding the general contractor to the sublist submitted with the bid. Those are my comments.
Okay. I want to follow up with you, Rick, real quick. What did you mean when you say they left money on the table?
Well, when you look at the spread between their bid and the next bidder, in the case of the underground storage tank, there's 10% difference. And in my experience, I've seen many bidders walk away from public bids when they're more than 5% low than the next bidder. So I have questions about this. Anyway, they were 10% low on that bid.
Okay, so they gave us the lowest bid on both projects.
Yeah, by far.
And
9% on the other project.
And so that's money that they would not, that money is money that our ratepayers would otherwise have to cough up in order to pay for this project, I guess.
It also would cause a person who's familiar with the bidding process to call this bid into question.
But as
I'm
you
looking
said,
for what's fair for everybody.
Okay.
That's all. Everybody.
Hey, Brad, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
How many bids did we receive on these projects?
Hang on just a second. On the North Shoreview project, we received 4 bids, and on the underground flow equalization, I'm sorry, on the underground flow equalization, we received 4 bids, and we did a pre-qualification process for that project as well before, so the bidders that met the pre-qualification are the only ones that could bid.
Were there any people who ultimately did submit bids who you considered to be disreputable or not qualified to do this work?
No. On the underground flow equalization, all those contractors were the ones that were pre-qualified. On the North Shoreview project, we actually had 6 bids, which were all very close. And they were relatively close, we would say.
And in reading the staff report, it sounded like one of the things that we as a council could do is we could accept the lowest bidder, but the reason that you're not recommending that we just accept the lowest bidder is because you feel costs have gone down significantly such that we can negotiate for even a lower price, not a higher one. Is that right?
Well, afterwards, the bids were received. I talked to the staff, and since we've had some recent experience with value engineering, and the contractors sometimes come up with those ideas, we reached out to the contractor and asked him if he had some ideas on these 2 projects, and he indicated that he had. The current contract for the North Shoreview project actually allows for value engineering, but we would only see, the city would only see 50% of the decrease in cost. So we asked the contractor if he'd be willing to renegotiate the price if there was some value engineering to provide the city closer to 100% of any kind of value engineering that they might come up with, and the contractor has been willing to do that, understanding.
When you say the contractor, you're talking about the lowest bidder, which
Yes.
is Anderson.
Yes, the lowest bidder, yes.
Okay.
And they were willing to do that, understanding the city's, budgetary constraints. They were willing to work with us. This process really is a risk to us as well, or to them as well, because they're not certain that we would award it, but we believe this is the right path. It's a risk to the city because they could walk away, but we don't anticipate that. The contractor has been very cooperative thus far.
What are the risks to us, the city, and to ratepayers with regards to possibly restarting the entire bid process with multiple bidders?
The risk is many times I've seen when the project is rebid, because people know each other's prices, the prices actually go up. The other thing is the time that it's going to take for us to rebid these projects and some of the risks in construction. Right now, we plan on issuing a notice to proceed in June for both these projects, which would give us a nice summer time to get these projects started. If we delay, it'll be more like November, and we'd be right in the middle of the rainy season doing some critical work to get these projects started. So it could end up in a delay. On the North Shoreview project, of course, we have the residents that are paying a high cost of flood insurance out there, and we've been trying to get this project going so that they could, stop paying that flood insurance. So it would just delay them being able to get out of paying flood insurance for a period of time.
Okay, more questions? All the council members, anybody want to jump in? If there's no...
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Brad, did you say that the labor would remain the same?
Not sure I said the labor would remain the same, but the labor costs are really what they are because of contracts and the prevailing wages that we have. So there wouldn't be any adjustments to that. And my understanding is the contractor doesn't intend to change any of his subs on this contract. This contractor does a lot of their own work. So that gives them somewhat of an advantage over others that subcontract a lot of the work out too. So that's a little bit of difference between what this contractor does and maybe some of the others.
I have a question about the timeline. Can you help better put some more meat on it in terms of quantifying exactly how much time you think a delay would to the bidding process would take? Would you say that it's pretty much the same with both of the projects? Like, are they both on the same timeline, or would a delay have a significantly different impact on one over the other?
The timeline delay, because if we rebid the project, we believe there's going to be about a 5-month delay. Both these projects, when you talk about a fair process, both these projects actually had extended bid periods. The North Shoreview project was actually out for 12 weeks, and the underground flow equalization system was out for 8 weeks, which is much longer than we normally do. So obviously a fair bidding process, everybody had the same timing and same things to look at. So we'd see probably a 5-month period where we intend to answer one of Mr. Bonilla's, Councilmember Bonilla's questions. We intend to actually come back to you in 2 weeks with the award of contract. We intend to move this along pretty fast with the contractor. And then so it would be about a 5-month delay. So instead of awarding in April, we would award more like September and begin construction probably in November rather than June. Both projects are about a 2-year construction period. There is on the North Shoreview project a little more concern because some of the permit requirements we have from the agencies to address some of the environmental sensitivities limit some of the construction that we can do in certain areas on the project. And so that's a bit of a risk. In fact, a couple of the areas, the outfalls for each of the pump stations on that project, we can only do work in September and October. So if we delayed this and then awarded, say in September, we'd miss that window altogether. So we'd be a year delay with that. And so we're looking at, delaying submission to FEMA to get the letter of map revision for the North Shoreview area and getting those folks out of the floodplain so they won't have to pay flood insurance.
How much, Brad? I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for Drew. Do we have any numbers for how much our residents are in the flood zone are paying? I mean, have we ever tried to calculate that cost to residents?
I've heard when I've met with residents out there, I've heard anywhere from in excess of $1,000 to maybe as high as $5,000 or $6,000. So it just varies, and some of that is based on whether they got the FEMA flood insurance or private insurance. And that's on an annual basis. Excuse me. So
right, and also all the residents of North Central and North Shoreview are also paying a special assessment tax as well. Is that right?
We haven't started that assessment yet. We had intended to make that assessment go in place as soon as they come out of the flood zone. But they have committed to doing that. The timing of which we haven't started yet.
I see. Okay.
We were trying to avoid them paying double, double fees, so to speak.
Can you explain to me more about the value engineering?
Yeah, so the designers do their best to come up with the best design, and not always do designers know how construction methods might work best on a project. So basically, what we're looking at is soliciting ideas from the contractor that might drive the cost down, and we're not talking millions of dollars here, but we're talking maybe several $100,000 potentially on both projects. And again, our staff's reasoning for doing this is we wanted to try to capture 100% of the savings rather than half the savings. I mean, we could have brought to the council to award the contract and then work with the contractor after the fact, but this contractor is willing to work with us before we do that, so we can achieve maximum savings for the ratepayers and the city.
And last question: is there a format or a process where top two are selected, and then and like you have a sort of a ranking based on the bids that you've already received, and then you can go back and negotiate with two different contractors and see what what the results of those conversations could be? I mean, is it do we have to narrow it to one?
Well, I'm not sure what the city attorney might say on that, but I suppose anything's possible. But I think we went through the fair bidding process for the bidders. There was everybody had the same playing field, so to speak, and understood the project. So questions were answered during the course of the bid process, and were answered, and those answers were given to all of the bidders. It would be hard. I mean, like I said, we might be talking a few $100,000 in what we've talked to the contractor so far. So, for instance, on North Shoreview, I think they're $1 million lower than the second low bidder. So the second low bidder would have to make $1 million plus whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars we're talking about in change of value engineering type. So that might be a bit of a stretch. And on the UFIS project, it's I think it's 7 million or so difference. So yeah, it's $7 million. So for the second bidder to make up that kind of money is pretty significant. I wouldn't anticipate in either case that the second low bidder could do that.
So are you, sorry, I said that was the last question. One more question. So are you saying that that under different circumstances, if it weren't for COVID-19, that it's very likely that the staff would have come back to the council suggesting that we go with the lowest bidder, which is Anderson. And now, given the different favorable contract terms that are a result of this economic crisis we're in, that we have an opportunity to save the city money in a direction that we would have gone anyway. Is that, am I understanding?
No, I don't think that COVID-19 has anything to do with this. I think this was just staff trying to be creative to try to drive the price down as closer than we have, towards our budgeted amount, our engineer's estimate. So that's kind of what we, and then I believe the municipal code says we can only negotiate with the lowest bidder and not any others.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Yeah.
If there's no other questions, Patrice, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment on this item at this time.
Not on item number 9.
Okay. What about item number 10?
Yes, I do have a public comment on that. Do you want me to go ahead and read that right now?
Why don't we just take up 9 first, and then we'll come back to item number 10. So as far as item number 9 goes, any other questions from the council, any comments, or I would entertain a motion. I'll close the public comment period on that agenda item, and any comments are welcome, or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I have some comments.
Go ahead, Rick. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So I just want to say that the reason this really, for me, needed to be brought up is because we have had several instances with unusual bidding happenings, right? And in a period of the last year, we've had difficulties with bids that came in that had issues. And I am one who really supports a fair bidding process. And I come.
I can't hear Rick. Can
I
anybody else hear?
can't hear Rick either. I thought it was just me.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I must have pushed my button. So anyway, the bidding process is really my thing here. We've had several instances of bids that did not go well over the last year. I had a lot of questions, things that come up. They've been approved anyway, but I just need to say, this bidding process is unusual. The way it's there, that it's seeking to be settled by the staff. I think it's into the twilight zone actually a bit. The item number 9 is, like I say, a big difference. Both of the 2 lowest bidders are 9% low. The next 3 bidders, which is the real field of regular bids, okay, people that really saw the full value, how much it's going to cost to do this job, are in the 26.7, 8, and 9 million range. That's what I compared to when I say 9% low, okay, because the bottom 2, unless they have some kind of a magic wand, I don't know how they can do that. They're competing with other people who I know, by looking at the names of the companies, actually pay the prevailing wage every single day, where these other 2 don't. So that's my concern here. I want to add also, I understand.
Rick, I'm worried.
All of the
I'm
letters.
concerned about you saying that, Rick. Is there some evidence that we're not looking at that shows that?
I'm speaking anecdotally. Yeah.
About this company specifically?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about this company specifically.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
So I just want to say that I also read every single letter today from all the homeowners who wrote from North Central and from North Shoreview. And I completely understand, and I feel their concern, and I know that they need this done, and they need it done as soon as possible. All I'm saying is I think we need to think about the people that do the work too, and the fairness in the process is important. So those are all my comments. Thanks.
Anybody else have comments before we make a motion here?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, for me, I appreciate Councilmember Bonilla's comments, but I'm really looking at which path to go here is going to be best for San Mateo residents, especially those of North Shoreview and North Central, and taxpayers. We need to, in these times especially, we need to do what it takes to watch every penny. And we know that, at least I haven't heard anything where to indicate that a prevailing wage would not be paid here. We owe it to get our residents off or stop them from paying flood insurance as soon as possible. This path that staff's recommending offers the city less risk and most likely lower costs For me, that's an easy decision. So I support the staff's recommendation.
Go ahead, Emma.
So I also feel very strongly, as I'm sure we all do, in terms of our accountability to the North Central and North Shore View communities who we've promised to get them out of the flood zone, and a year-long delay is too long. I mean, that's a cumulative cost to those neighborhoods that disproportionately impact those communities, and so when in reviewing the material that we have in front of us, it seems to me like the bidding process was adequate and fair. 12 weeks, 8 weeks, including a pre-qualification. The cost savings that are provided by what I understand to be really primarily driven by the value engineering, and not any cost savings through lower fees to the workforce. To me, it's hard to see how rebidding this process would change the outcome favorably to the city. So I appreciate the sentiment, Rick, or Councilmember Buenia, and I think we all share the priority of thinking of our workforce and making sure that our processes are fair and transparent and accountable. And I do see this as an example of the staff being creative to save taxpayer money and make sure that we're following through on our promises to community members.
Diana, I have a few comments, but I want to let you go first if you have any.
Yeah, for me, Rick, the biggest issue was whether or not there's going to be a prevailing wage. I totally concur with you that has to happen on this project. By the same token, we got to raise the city coffers and be conservative with them. So I appreciate the fact that you are our watchdog on the process. But I'm not seeing anything substantively here that would cause me some concern. So I'd be inclined to support it. But I very much want you to know that I appreciate that you're a watchdog for us.
Thank you.
A couple of quick comments. So yes, I think all of us stand united for prevailing wage. I think that is what we can do to put workers on a fair playing field so that everybody's getting paid an adequate wage for doing the work here in San Mateo. That's something important to all of us. Secondly, for over 5 years, I've been standing in people's living rooms and out in North Central and North Shore View promising to get this project done. Promising. And it's extremely important to me. I spoke to one homeowner who was paying $9,000 in flood insurance every single year. This is a project that we have known since the beginning was going to put money back in the pockets of residents, money that they sorely need right now. And for more than a couple of years now, I've been telling them we're almost there. We just need one more permit. And I think for a period of about, 10, 20, 100 meetings in a row, I had a question for Brad at every single meeting. And that was, Brad, when are we going to get that last permit? Hey, Brad, when are we going to get that last permit?
I'm glad you asked. I believe we get that permit within the next 10 days. So we'll be ready to go.
I'm sure you want to go out on that limb, Brad?
We actually received correspondence from BCDC. I think it's pretty safe.
That makes me very happy, and I look forward to standing there with the shovel and getting this done, and I will give you all the credit, Brad. Thank you so much for doing that, and I know the residents appreciate it too. With that, I'll make the motion that we approve this item based on the recommendation of staff.
For clarification
yes,
purposes,
John?
at item 9 and 10? For clarification
no,
purposes,
this is just
item 9? Just
this
item
is just
9.
9 for
Now
right now.
Right.
So just 9.
I
Do I have a
second.
second? We have a motion, a second. Clerk is going to call roll.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Aye.
Councilmember Bonilla.
For all of the reasons I stated earlier, I'm going to vote no, but I want the people to know that I understand that they need this done. So I'm with them.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Rodriguez,
Aye.
Mayor Goethals.
Aye.
That's 4-1.
Okay, we will move on. So that passes, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, item 10. Rick, do you want to start with your comments or your questions or something?
Well, I do have questions. We covered most of, I said everything I needed to say. I only have one question based on some comments that I heard from Brad about value engineering. This is a design bid build project, which is different from the other project. This project, the bids were submitted on March 19th, and probably every single bidder that submitted bids had a different design and that they included with their bid and build proposal. I don't know how much value engineering you can do based on what's been, 20 days? Less than 20 days. I mean, short period of time. I really don't see it. This is a different project. It's, the difference is larger. And I don't know. So I reiterate the same things, and my position is going to be the same here. I think we need to clean up our bidding process.
Patrice, did we already read all of the public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor, we have not read this one yet.
Okay. Could we hear that now?
Absolutely. This comment is from Matthew Hilliard. He is representing the Construction Industry Force Account Council, CFAC. Good evening, council members. Construction Industry Force Account Council is a construction industry supported nonprofit organization dedicated to public contract code, compliance, and education. We promote competitive bidding on public works construction projects by using a fair, transparent, and objective process. I am writing the council to encourage that you move forward with rejecting all bids for this project because all the bids came in over the engineer's estimate. But instead of authorizing the Public Works Director to negotiate a contract with the contractor, the city should re-advertise and rebid this project. By entering into a negotiated contract and not continuing with the competitive bidding process, it can be construed as a lack of transparency and may signal an unfair and one-sided process. I am asking the council to move forward with option 2 in the agenda report. Option 2 would require rebidding the contract under more favorable market conditions, with certain project costs such as labor rates fixed. Potential cost reductions would focus on the market variability associated with material costs. Rebidding this project would be a continuation of the transparent and fair competitive bidding process the city has already started. Thank you for your time.
Okay, if there's no other public comment, we will close the public comment period at this time. Based on that public comment, Brad, I have a couple of questions for you. Number one, when I first read the staff report, what I walked away thinking was your intention or your recommendation is to award the contract to the lowest bidder, but then to negotiate further savings that you saw there was a potential for. Am I looking at that differently? Am I interpreting that wrong?
Yeah, no, actually, we're asking you to reject the bids and then allow us to negotiate with the low bidder based on any kind of value engineering we might see or constructability issues they might want to do differently.
Is it a distinction with a significant difference? Is it that the ratepayers will actually see an even more significant cost savings by doing it the way you're suggesting? Yes, any kind of savings we get would be advantageous to the ratepayers. In some of the early discussions, we're not sure some of the ideas the contractor had will make any kind of difference because the engineer's looking at some of those to see if they actually meet, engineering requirements as well. So we're not sure what we'll bring back to the council. The only surety I would bring back to you is that we wouldn't bring back a contract that would be any more than what the contractor has provided us so far. Okay, what are the risks?
With the potential of a lower number.
Okay, so there is a strong upside. What's the downside? What are the risks of rebidding the entire project and going back out Could we lose a permit? Could it take too long? Could it cost too much? What are the risks here?
As you know, we have a cease and desist order from the state water board on our sewer overflows. This project is a significant project to help remedy that situation. We have not met our requirement as far as that cease and desist order goes, as far as the timing. So we're kind of running out of, we're behind the 8 ball on that. So we'd like to move the project forward. I think the other risk for me is we just miss a window of summer construction if we don't start now and we delay this project for 5 months as well, because we'll be starting kind of in winter time when we're trying to do major excavation and so forth that can really get disrupted by rain, which will probably delay the project. As you know, this project is in the middle of a couple of neighborhoods that are very interested and concerned about the project impacts. So making the project go longer obviously wouldn't be in anyone's interest, if we end up with some of those kinds of delays.
This is an all prevailing wage project, is that right?
Yes, definitely. Everything we do is prevailing wage, and the contractors have to meet those requirements.
I mean, the council members don't make prevailing wage, but everybody else does, right?
Oh, I thought you did. I'm sorry.
Brad does.
I'm making prevailing wage. You didn't get the same deal.
I would like to renegotiate. Those are all my questions. Anyone else have questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a final comment.
Sure.
So in construction, there's this thing known as change orders. And there's something that happens in the public workplace where bids come in. Certain contractors bid low because they've looked at the plans very carefully and they have plans to come back with change orders later. And right now I'm predicting that we'll probably see some minimal savings as a result of the negotiation. And then we will see some change orders where they will take some money back. The difference is the other contractors already included all that work in their bid. So that's all I have to say. I think we need to be very careful with this kind of dealing with a particular one who came in low, 10% low, and then giving them another chance to basically rearrange the terms of the project.
Brad, I have a question for Brad. Do we have a cap on contingency for this project?
So when we award the projects, we bring forward to council a recommendation for contingency that we allow for potential change orders. So the council could put a cap on that, whatever they want. Staff will make a recommendation at the time of award. We usually try to do about 10% of the contract. That gives us the ability to make any adjustments as construction is occurring. I can tell you the experience that my staff have had with this contractor have been very good, and I don't anticipate significant change orders on the project. I mean, I don't know, but just based on experience, some of the staff members have with this contractor, they haven't experienced those things.
So just help me with the math here. So they came in 9% under, right? Say we put
10.
a 10% under, and then say we put in a 10% cap on contingency. We're still going to be the city would theoretically then still be saving money in the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I guess you, based on the math you just presented, you'd end up at the second low bidder's cost, right?
Right.
If they were 10% higher.
Brad, can you tell me what's the cap on change orders?
25%
cap?
Pardon me?
Is there a 25% cap on the base contract value?
Not that I'm familiar with, Rick.
That was the case on the levee improvement project.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
We had only
think
a 5% contingency on that one.
Yeah. as I said, we usually try to come back with a allowance of 10% for our contracts. Obviously, we try to keep them lower than that. I think if there was a 25%, if we ended up with a 25% change order rate, there had to be something wrong in the design drawings or something else like that that was really missed by the designer.
Thank you, Brad.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Motion, well, do I have to read it, or can I just say motion to approve?
We can hear you, Sean.
Okay, if you indicate that you're moving staff's recommendation, that'll be fine.
Yeah, motion to approve staff's recommendation.
I'll second it. Motion and a second. All in favor, please respond to the clerk.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Aye.
Councilmember Bonilla.
No.
Deputy Mayor Rodriguez.
Aye.
Mayor Goethals.
Aye.
4-1.
Okay, and now is the time for public comment. During the public comment period, this is your opportunity to respond or to speak about anything that's not on the agenda. Have we received any public comment, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, no general public comment.
Then we'll move on to our next public hearing, which is agenda item number 11, the Climate Action Plan. I believe we have a presentation from Andrea Chow.
Yes.
And
Hi,
a
can everyone
PowerPoint
hear me?
presentation. I can hear you. We can all hear you. Should we be seeing something on the screen at this time?
I will be bringing up my presentation. One moment.
Great, we can see that.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Andrea Chow. I'm the Sustainability Analyst for the City of San Mateo, and I'm here this evening to make a presentation on the 2020 Climate Action Plan. My goal tonight is to review the 2020 Climate Action Plan and the associated General Plan amendments and addendum to the General Plan EIR. I last presented to City Council at the January 6th City Council study session, where I provided a detailed presentation on the CAP update process and the CAP document itself. Only grammatical edits have been made since you last reviewed the 2020 Climate Action Plan, so tonight I will provide a very brief presentation. For a little bit of background, the city first adopted a climate action plan in 2015. The CAP established a comprehensive strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our community. It also identified GHG reduction measures and implementation strategies to achieve reduction targets. Since 2015, we have made a lot of progress on implementing the CAP, and state targets have since been revised. So staff have been working to update the 2015 Climate Action Plan in order to quantify the city's progress towards our GHG reduction targets and to update the GHG reduction targets for 2030 and 2050 to stay consistent with state regulations and also to integrate with the general plan update. The city began work on updating the Climate Action Plan in October 2018 after selecting the consultant Placeworks. The steps to drafting the 2020 CAP are illustrated on this slide, from developing a GHG inventory to revising the greenhouse gas emission reduction strategies. Throughout this process, the project team worked with the Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission as the key advisory body, meeting with them 5 times throughout this process. The 2020 CAP is now updated with the latest climate change science, a new 2017 GHG inventory, and revised GHG reduction targets and GHG reduction measures to meet those targets. The 2017 greenhouse gas emissions inventory showed that the city is both on track to meet and exceed the 2020 reduction target. But still, the city will need to continue with deep reductions to meet 2030 and 2050 targets. The updated Climate Action Plan includes emerging issues and best practices to capture a comprehensive and innovative suite of greenhouse gas reduction measures. The city has used the 2015 Climate Action Plan as a qualified GHG reduction strategy for CEQA streamlining purposes. In order to adopt the 2020 cap as a qualified greenhouse gas reduction strategy and maintain those same benefits, the city must also adopt general plan amendments and an addendum to the general plan EIR. Both of these items were reviewed at the February 11th Planning Commission meeting, where the Commission recommended these items for City Council adoption. The general plan amendments contain minor changes to the circulation, housing, and land use elements in order to reflect the new GHG inventory, the new targets, and the revised GHG reduction strategies. The EIR addendum ensures consistency with CEQA guidelines and found that there are no new impacts or increased severity of existing impacts. This concludes my presentation. Staff's recommendation for Council this evening is to adopt a resolution to approve the 2020 Climate Action Plan, the associated general plan amendments, and an addendum to the general plan EIR.
Excellent. Any questions from the council? Seeing none, I will ask for any public comment from the clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 comments.
Wonderful. It's glad I see it's working. It's working. That's
Okay.
fantastic. A reminder to everyone that you can make public comment by going to the city council website or the City of San Mateo website, and then going to the meeting and then clicking on Speak Up. Thank you. Patrice, go ahead and read those public comments.
Okay, it looks like we just got one more, so give me 1 second to double check this. Okay, so we have 3 comments now. Cliff Barger said he wanted to commend San Mateo for forming a climate action plan and particularly applaud setting goals that are per capita rather than absolute. As a region, we need to work together to collectively lower all of our emissions. We know that the very nature of GHGs is that we can't wall off any particular jurisdiction and ignore what is going on outside our boundaries. By setting a per capita goal, San Mateo allows for future growth, which can lower regional emissions without the potential perverse incentive of trying to hit an absolute emissions goal.
Excellent.
And then next one is from Adam Nugent. I want to briefly voice my praise for the city's climate action plan. Metrics are extremely important, and we need to frame our role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions in a way that acknowledges that we are members of a single planet. By focusing our targets on a per capita basis, we will allow San Mateo to be both a climate leader and city that welcomes future change in ways that do not pass off our regional responsibilities somewhere else. People will want to live and work in a city like ours, a city that can provide them with the ability to lead a great, low-carbon lifestyle. Let's show the world how to do it. Thank you. And then the next comment is Gita Dev from Sierra Club and Sustainable Land Use Committee. Agenda item 11, Bicycle Master Plan and Climate Action Plan. Before these are finalized, we would like to request that the Sustainable Green Streets concept be reviewed for inclusion in both these documents. While each concept included is not new, the policy of integrating these concepts into a new Sustainable Green Street network brings together many strands that add and affect the goals of both the Bicycle Master Plan as well as the Climate Action Plan. It requires a policy for departments to work together on integrated street solutions rather than in their traditional silos. We have forwarded via email a very short presentation that would have been presented at the Green Streets for Sustainable Communities Symposium, organized by about 20 different groups for March 12th, but, well, that has been postponed to September because of COVID. We believe it can have a major impact on your bicycle master plan and climate action plan to have a sustainable Green Streets network and policy in place. We look forward to working with the City of San Mateo to ensure benefits for both those plans. And I do see we had one more arrive, and yes, oh, we already answered that. Nathan Chan. San Mateo should be proud of its decision to evaluate its progress on reducing emissions on a per capita basis. This will ensure that future policymakers are not incentivized to raise the city's barriers to entry to level or reduce emissions. It will instead encourage those policymakers to figure out how to reduce the carbon intensity of all its citizens in an equitable and just fashion. And let me just refresh once to make sure there are not any additional. No, I believe that's it.
Patrice, do you have some water, or do you want me to bring you some?
I've got it. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay, those are all the public comments. I will close the public comment period, bring it back to the council. Any final comments, or I will entertain a motion.
To approve.
Actually, I think I see that there's a comment first. I hear your motion. I'm going to table it for just a second because I heard a comment first.
Sure.
Emirates, did you have a comment?
Yes, just really quickly. So I talked to Geeta today, and I think that a lot of what her suggestions are, and coming from the Sierra Club, which thinks, you know, day and night about this, are already very well represented in the plan. I think all of us really can say with a high level of confidence that this document really achieves the integrated approach. Oh,
we can still see you.
No, do a dance. Do a dance.
In
No, please.
the office. Sensors.
That's right. That's our
That's
climate action plan at
right
work.
there. Right.
Exactly.
Anyway, I think that when they do a deep dive into the document, they'll see how ambitious it is, and also the fact that that we have a dedicated sustainability analyst on staff that helps with that connectivity in the execution. It helps with that interdepartmental lens that needs to be taken to make sure that that we're syncing up and optimizing all these all the intersectional opportunities. So I really do think that we are responding to that question and have done that homework.
I think you're so right. I agree with that. And we have a motion. If there's no further comments, we have a motion.
Can I add one comment,
Please,
Mr. Mayor?
go, please.
I just want to say that I've been one of the largest proponents of our climate action plan and our committee that we initially appointed, the Sustainability Commission. And in working in my position with the Peninsula Clean Energy as a member of the board there, I'm really proud of the actions that our staff is taking to keep our city on the leading edge. The shift to the per capita measurements is really astounding because this makes every person's actual doings accountable. It actually brings to every person the realization that my individual actions do count. So with that said, I support this. Thank you.
Is that a second, Rick? Did I hear you second?
Thank you. Yes.
There's nobody greener than Rick. You can try. You can try, but there's nobody. So we have a motion and a second. Please respond to the clerk when she calls roll.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
A green eye.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rodriguez.
Aye.
Mayor Goethals.
Aye, that passes unanimously. Fantastic. Moving on to agenda item 12, which is the Housing Successor Agency. I believe we have a presentation from Sandy Council. Sandy, welcome.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. This is Sandy Council. I'm the housing manager, and this is to provide you with a summary of 2 housing-related reports that are required to be submitted to the state. The first one is the Housing Successor Report for last fiscal year, 2018-19. Prior to 2012, the city had a redevelopment agency that collected a portion of property tax revenues from downtown shoreline areas of San Mateo. And 20% of those funds were required to be set aside for affordable housing programs and projects. During those years, when we had redevelopment, a number of loans were made to developers, property owners, and homeowners for programs to assist households with incomes up to 120% of the median income. The city now, as the housing successor, has the responsibility to manage those loans and use any revenues to further assist affordable housing projects in accordance with the state regulations. So the purpose of this report is to show how much revenue has been collected from loan repayments and the uses of the funds. So during the reporting period of July 2018 to June 2019, we received about $550,000 for resulting in a total of about $3 million in the fund. These funds are planned to be used as part of the city's financial assistance package for the Downtown Sites project, which is currently being developed by Mid-Penn Housing. So the approximate balance of $3 million will be used specifically to assist the units in that project that will be targeted to extremely low-income households, or 30% of the median income. So that's generally what that report is all about. And then the second report is the Housing Element Annual Progress Report, and that's for the calendar year of 2019. The housing element is one chapter or section of the general plan. It's the only element in our general plan that's highly regulated and needs to be approved by the state of California. And so this progress report is part of that process. Generally speaking, it covers about 3 areas: the progress on the housing element programs and projects, policies, that's summarized in Table D, the regional housing needs allocation progress, referred to as RENA, which is specifically tracks building permits issued for housing units, and then it tracks it by income category. That's summarized in Table B. And then other details on housing production, including the number of units in planning applications that were submitted to the city, number of planning applications approved, number of building permits issued, and building permits finalized. And that's summarized in tables A and A2 of the report. So the report itself is a state-provided worksheet. It has many pages, and the permit data is a little cumbersome to read. So the main information I've just summarized in this chart. Planning applications submitted is defined as planning applications that were deemed complete, formal planning applications that were deemed complete. So during last year, there was 45 units that were submitted and approved just during that 2019. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. During that same calendar year, a total of 299 units were approved. Some of these applications came in from prior years. And then 383 building permits were issued, or units, and then 117 were completed during that calendar year. And this shows you the breakdown of affordability. All these units are affordable units with some sort of restriction or agreement, so that we know those will be affordable over time. Another highlight from the report is the number of accessory dwelling units, also known as granny units or secondary units. And we've seen quite an increase since the city adopted some of the state streamlining rules. Prior to like 2017, we would only see about a handful of ADU permits come in through the city. But in 2018, there was 8 issued and completed, and compare that with this last year where 45 permits were issued and 21 were completed. And staff is further working on more modifications, and some of those will be coming to the council in the next upcoming months. But I thought that was interesting highlight to show the success of those streamlining efforts. And then the RENA progress to date. So this is the one table in the report that's cumulative. The housing elements, an 8-year plan. We're 4 years into it, so we're halfway. And so the RENA requirement for the city of San Mateo is to have sufficient land zoned and related implementing programs to be able to accommodate a total of 3,100 dwelling units over this 8-year period. And then the targets are further broken down to various income levels based on the community needs. So halfway through, our total units permitted is 55% of the goal, and the affordable units is more like 15%. I just wanted to point out the affordable units are based on need in the community and the requirement that we have sufficient land to build that many units. But the goal, the RENA target, is not at all based on the financial feasibility to meet those goals. For example, the city's inclusionary program helps supply affordable units, as well as the city housing funds to develop affordable units at the various income levels. Currently, the high development costs in the Bay Area are at unprecedented levels. We've increased our inclusionary requirement to 15% just recently, but we don't think that anything higher than that is economically feasible due to these high development costs. Also, we leverage our affordable housing funds with numerous other sources in order to produce new affordable units. And I calculated that the estimated subsidy to meet our RENA affordability goals is over $500 million. And so that's just not within the reach of the city with the city's resources at this point in time. I would like to point out that the inclusionary program has produced 76% of these affordable units in this chart from 2015 to 19. So it is an effective program. I did want to highlight the pipeline units that the city is reviewing that doesn't show up in the report. And this is due to that comment I made a moment ago that planning applications that were deemed report complete were the only ones that were identified in this report. But we do have several housing developments in the planning review stage right now. This progress report is just a snapshot of that calendar year of 2019 and doesn't show the several planning applications that are being reviewed in the pre-application stage, or maybe they were submitted last year but became completed in early 2020. As a matter of fact, there were 9 applications representing 806 units that actually did come in 2019. They just weren't complete in 19. But right now we are looking at about 2,000 units being reviewed, and 375 of those are affordable. So that's actually more units than what we did in the first 4 years. So that's just an overview of those 2 reports. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. You're on mute.
Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandy. A question on your pipeline slide right there before you close it down.
Oh.
Have you been able to, have you been hearing from any developers or been able to look into just how this current situation might affect that pipeline? I've been actually asked that on numerous occasions by different residents, and I was just curious myself too, like how is it going to affect things, or have you looked into it, and what do you think?
I think that's really uncertain right now. I think even before this whole COVID crisis, there were some indications that some of the higher end market rate unit, that market was softening a little, and we've seen some developers sort of take their time to relook at their projects. We do have a couple of projects from a couple years ago that got approved that never got built, and so it remains to be seen whether those will go forward. I cannot predict. I think we could see some market changes. We could. Right.
This is just a shame because we've always been talking about all the housing units we have in the pipeline, and now we're facing this. Do you plan, I mean, I'm not expecting you to come up with a crystal ball, but do you think that you might be able to give us a further update in the coming months to just look like maybe reaching out to developers and looking at the factors and just trying to get a little bit more information? I know this is kind of new to all of us right now, but I for one would be interested in trying to hear a little bit more about what the best educated guess is about how we're going to be doing on our housing goals moving forward.
Yeah, so I will mention the one thing that city staff is still working on those planning applications, with all this working remotely and so forth. We are still working through those applications. And so we're in close communication with the developers. So far, nobody's totally pulled back.
Sure.
So we'll be able to evaluate that, I think, as we go.
Sure. Thank you for that presentation.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Amaris.
Just kind of to tack on to what Councilmember Rodriguez was saying about the gap between those projects that have been permitted and then not completed. Do we have a process like for tracking those projects and maybe even doing sort of like an exit review to understand, what was not working for them, or is it always sort of the same story, or are there things within our, our internal control that we could look at fixing? How are we capturing sort of like the full life cycle and quantifying how, when those projects fall through, what lessons learned, we can integrate and improve our own processes and policies?
I think usually the developer's decision whether to build their project or not is based on economics and their market projections or the cost of money. I don't think it has anything to do with the city's process, because we actually approve projects and then they didn't get built. That's outside of the city's control. One project that's in that category, they sold it to another developer, so they're going to be talking to us. So it's not like it's gone away. It's just going to take a little extra time to see if the new owner wants to change the project or not. That's their prerogative. So there's only a couple projects that haven't moved forward, and developers don't tend to share with us their financials.
Sandy, the project you're referring to is across the street from Central Park and
yes.
got sold. And one of the real issues facing that particular project had to do with the community benefit piece of what they had to bring to the table with the city, right?
That was one issue early on in that project.
I just bring that up because that's the next item on our agenda.
Exactly. That's a great segue.
Any other questions for Sandy at this time? Go ahead.
Sandy, I'm just curious about the next round of RHNA numbers. And are they taking into account how cities are tracking with their current cycle? Or is it really just, here's where we'll be in the future. We don't care whether you're on track at this point.
Well, the formula for the next RHNA cycle is being discussed. Actually, Rick Bonilla is on the subcommittee that's working on that. And so there are a lot of different factors that will go into the formula. I believe that past performance is one that at least some people have suggested be included in the formula. I have no idea where they are with that yet. Rick probably knows more than me on that one.
But suffice it to say, we're doing okay with our zoning for
Yes,
the housing.
yes, we are in excellent shape for this current period. We have adequate zoning, and we look like we're well on our way to meet our goals in the total, just not on the breakdown of the affordable. So we've met that, and we will certainly meet that by the end of the 8 years.
Excellent. Rick, how are we doing?
Well, I can comment a little bit. The question of whether or not past performance will count for anything is certainly it will. We can't expect people to not get credit. It wouldn't be fair. Okay, so it's been part of the discussion. Also, the new criteria for determining how much housing needs to be built in different areas has been changed. Some would say it's been modernized. Some others are saying it's been destroyed, but it has been changed, and it has slightly different focus. It focuses more on co-locating jobs, housing, and transportation, along with opportunity areas. And so it's going to be a whole new kind of arena that focuses on equity overall and on cleaning up the environment by reducing greenhouse gas emissions through co-locating housing, jobs, and transportation. And so it's quite an involved process. I've been attending the Regional Planning Committee meetings since October. Before I even started attending one of those, I was asked if I wanted to be on the Housing Methodology Committee, and of course I said yes. That is the one where the RHNA numbers are developed. They come from the State Office of Housing and Community Development to the ABAG and the MTC, and we work them over there and try to create the fairest process possible for divvying those needed units up amongst all the 101 cities and 9 counties in the Bay Area.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions? I got you. Any other questions for Sandy before we go to public comment? Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
On this item, we do not have any public comment.
We'll close the public comment period, bring it back to the council. Any comments before we turn the lights out on Amarantz again?
Thank you, Sandy.
Let's see.
I make a motion to approve the staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Excellent. Then, Madam Clerk, please call roll, or
Call the vote.
we'll do a roll call vote. Excuse me.
Okay. Councilmember Bonilla.
Yes.
Councilmember Pappen.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rodriguez.
Aye.
Mayor Goethals.
Aye.
Thank you.
That passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sandy. Moving right along to new business. Keep up the great work, Sandy.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. We have a presentation by our own Kohar Kajayan talking about community benefit on those future development projects.
Yes, thank you. And good evening, Mayor Goethals and members of the council. Kohar Kajayan, Community Development Director. I hope that all of you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy. Thank you for queuing up our conversation on community benefits. Tonight, we're going to be hopefully trying to define what that means. In our general plan, there are provisions which allow for increased height and densities in exchange for community benefits. Additionally, the government code authorizes cities to enter into development agreements with developers. A development agreement is a way for developers to buy certainty in their projects. It establishes certain rights, freezes fees, and allows phasing opportunities. Typically, development agreements are proposed as part of a larger project, which require phasing or a longer term for the development. Currently, San Mateo does not have a community benefit or public improvement program, which has, as Mayor Goethals mentioned, created a challenge for some development applications which try to utilize these provisions. The amount and type of benefit in the general plan is not defined. And although it does create that level of uncertainty, it's also a good thing, especially during times like this, because the community and the council's priorities could shift over time and may vary depending on the development or the needs of the immediate neighborhood where the project is located. In order to help frame the conversation, I did think it was important to highlight the existing impact fees and requirements placed on projects. Although these fees cannot be considered community benefits because they are required to offset the impact of the development itself, they do often require a large monetary contribution to help pay for citywide improvements for things such as the wastewater treatment plant and towards capital improvements, including both parks and circulation. The city is also undergoing a comprehensive impact fee analysis, which we hope to bring back to you later this summer, which was on your strategic plan as well. Projects do have an intrinsic benefit. Various projects being considered also meet other council and community objectives, such as what Sandy just talked about, providing housing and building out what was envisioned in general plans and in master plans, such as our rail corridor plan. This is a list of some of the projects since the late 90s where we have applied community benefits, either as part of a development agreement or utilizing the provisions in the general plan. It does not include all of the projects like Bay Meadows, which would take up its own page, but it just gives you an idea of some of the projects where we have had either monetary contributions or a combination of both contributions and improvements to the immediate neighborhood. The city currently has 3 projects off of El Camino in the pipeline that are requesting to use the provisions of the general plan, and 1 project, Concar Passage, requesting a development agreement. These projects vary in size and scope, as you can see on the slide. So in order to help facilitate discussions regarding community benefits for these projects and future development projects that may come in, staff is proposing to establish interim guidelines while a more robust community conversation happens during the general plan update process. In order to help develop these guidelines, we are requesting council direction on first, what evaluation method should be used to determine the amount of the benefit, and second, what types of benefits or improvements should be prioritized in the city when we have those conversations. So first, when it comes to the evaluation process, the lack of uncertainty in the current process has discouraged applicants from requesting use of the general plan provision, as well as in the past has created difficulty and confusion for what those benefits should be when having conversations about them. And in order to create certainty in the process and manage expectations up front, I think with both the applicant and the community, staff recommends that an independent third-party economic feasibility analysis be provided in order to determine the amount of that community benefit. The feasibility analysis should consider different criteria, though, depending on whether the community benefit is in exchange for height and density in the general plan or a community benefit in exchange for a development agreement. It's much easier to determine the value of the increased height and density and the proportionate share for community benefit because there's a financial gain as a result of the increase. It's not so easy when it's part of a development agreement because it's very difficult to attribute a value to buying an applicant's certainty. They're not necessarily getting more units or more allowances from base zoning and land use. They are requesting a longer term of development, which is just not as quantifiable. Therefore, for development agreements, I would recommend determining the impacts of the development, what can be legally exacted from the development to mitigate those impacts, which we do through the environmental impact review, and which impacts just cannot be mitigated or legally required of the developer. Then, based on the community input that we receive, both through our neighborhood meetings, from the Planning Commission study sessions, we then conduct an economic feasibility analysis to quantify the public benefit and the development share of those impacts. This would balance meeting community concerns while also receiving benefits to the nearby neighborhoods, which otherwise may not be possible. Also, I think it's important that we encourage partnerships with the developers. This means that the city and the developer can work in partnership in bringing some of these community benefits to fruition. And as an example, there are various state grants and programs where, if applied for by both the city and the developer together, they could yield millions in grant funding for infrastructure improvements. And an example of that is the infill infrastructure grant, where it's required that there be entitlements and a co-partnership between the city and the developer in order to qualify for the money. I consider that a win-win for both the community and the project. So without a feasibility study, the downside is that improvements or benefits could be requested that could in return make projects financially infeasible. Projects do vary in terms of their financial performance, and requiring a study could help facilitate those negotiations and conversations with both the applicant and the community and provide that level of certainty before getting started on those conversations. Once we confirm how to establish the amount of the benefit, next the piece is to establish what and which types of community benefits should be prioritized in the city. This slide shows a summary of some of the items identified in the staff report. It is important to create some level of structure, but still provide flexibility for each project. I liked an analogy that came to me today in conversations about creating swim lanes, but allowing each swimmer to pick the stroke that works for them. And I think it's important to help manage those expectations for what these types of improvements could look like, but also provide some wiggle room to see what works for the project and for the immediate neighborhood. For example, depending on the location of the project, circulation improvements might be the most important, or in a different location, preservation of neighborhood serving commercial might be the most important. So some things to think about and consider during our conversation this evening. Over the last year, through both our general plan workshops as well as the Home for All community conversations, the top 2 priorities identified by our community have been housing and circulation. Now, given the past 3 weeks, those could shift in the future, and we'll have to see how that goes. The slide I brought up earlier showed all the impact fees and requirements of all development projects, which cover a wide variety of city priorities and improvements. However, the nearby neighborhoods mostly affected by those projects generally receive a disproportionate amount of the impact, yet may not get a proportional amount of the benefit through the impact fees. Typically, the value of these benefits, especially for smaller projects, is not going to move the needle in larger citywide impacts, but may make a huge impact on the immediate neighborhood, such as providing better sidewalks or repaving streets, etc. Generally, providing the amenity or the improvement is much more preferred over payment of a fee or monetary contribution because it has an immediate return. The improvement or the amenity gets built with the project and does not have to go through additional review and programming, and it just gets done much quicker and online for the neighborhood and the community to use or experience. So this brings us back to the 2 questions where I'm requesting council feedback and direction. First, does the City Council agree that an independent third-party feasibility analysis is the appropriate method to identify the value of the benefit being provided? And second, what types of public improvements in excess of our city requirements should be prioritized when negotiating public benefits? My recommendation is that we prioritize improvements based on the neighborhood input and that those improvements are nearby the project site. Direction from tonight's meeting will help develop these interim priority guidelines to help facilitate conversations with these projects I mentioned earlier, as well as future projects that come in until we develop a formalized community benefits program with our general plan update process. This concludes my presentation, and I can bring up the 2 questions, and I'm available for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Kohar. Eric, you have questions? Eric?
It would probably help if I unmuted myself. Thank you, Kohar. Can you help me understand a little bit more about like what the final guidelines kind of are, or what ideally they would look like? Not necessarily what they are, but is it going to be like we choose a couple lanes and then they get to choose the stroke, as you said? I mean, is that how other cities do it? Is it? Or I just wasn't clear to me like what the end looks like of when everything's said and done.
So what my hope is that it actually will be quite simple. We can do it through minute order, and it would just be agreeing or recognizing that we can require the independent third-party analysis. And then the second part of it would be developing a list of the improvements, probably those identified in the staff report or more, and then just acknowledging that the improvement or the public benefit would be for the nearby project or nearby the project, and it would be based on community input. I don't think we would need to define it more than that. I think that gives us enough definition to then go with the developer and the community and put something together for the program.
Sure, that makes sense. And then one follow-up question to a comment you made earlier in terms of setting the lanes up and letting them pick the strokes. What I've seen in the past when we do that, they all pick freestyle stroke or whatever they feel. I mean, there's usually one that works. It's the most economically feasible. How do we prevent that from happening if what we really need is a butterfly stroke, not freestyle?
I'm hoping that could be part of the conversation today. If we really believe that there is one that is better than the other, then I would love council to provide that direction. I do think that each project has its own with immediate neighborhood concerns that it creates, whether it's traffic concerns or like I mentioned, the neighborhood serving retail concerns. So I think that providing an opportunity for a little bit of wiggle room or flexibility really helps depending on where the project is located. But I also understand the idea of prioritizing what those council objectives could be for the community.
Sure. Thank you.
Other questions from council?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Rick, I dare you to take that swimming analogy a little bit further.
I am going to, actually, because I'm looking on, I want to mention on page 3 of your staff report, Kohar, you list quite a comprehensive list of things that could be considered for public benefit, and in looking like under other at the bottom. And I'm just bringing this up to point out that things need to be flexible. There needs to be some cooperation between staff, the applicant, and council when we're looking and considering these things. But one of the ones that's very popular, I hear a lot of people saying we need this right now, and it's provide daycare within the project, right? Well, if we look at the little projects that you showed us there, those couple with what, 17 units and how many other units, 18 units, 44 units even, depending on the plan, without making major revisions, it just might not be possible, and it might not make sense to put a daycare facility there, because generally those things require between 10 and 14,000 feet. You have to have indoor space, outdoor space. There are a lot of requirements. You can't just build one and say it's good enough. So my thinking is, I just want to be sure that we're going to be talking about a process where we're feasible. I mean, we're flexible, right? Knowing that there is no one size fits all on most of these things, which is, I think, what was some of the fear of developers for using the public benefit in the past. I think it's time for a new day on public benefit, and I think it can help us a lot to get the things that we've been struggling to get, some of the help that we need in our communities. Previously, I don't think we looked at public benefit as including the possibility of all the things that we're looking at on this list with what it looks like 20 items on it. So thank you for that. But those are my comments right now. I don't really have a question, I guess. What do you think about it? Kohar?
Nice try. Nice.
No, back to Kohar.
I missed the question.
Yeah. Okay.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Diane.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. Is it that the items that are on page 3, they're sort of like the menu that you can choose from, but the goals that you're trying to reach are community neighborhood input and improvements nearby the project site? Do I have it right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I get it. All right, and so it is that with you are hoping then with community and neighborhood input, we'll get a preference off the menu. Exactly. That's right. I'm not going with the swimming analogy. I'm all about food.
I don't have a good food analogy for this one, but yes, exactly that. I think that by going out to the neighborhoods and the community, which we do as part of our process anyway, right, it'll help us hone in on, from that list, what would make the biggest impact to this nearby neighborhood.
Okay, so you're going to come with a pre-selected menu.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. It wasn't totally clear to me. I got you now. Thanks.
Although the menu is very open and flexible, as you can see, it's not very specific.
I remembered my question.
It's too late, Rick. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, when I'm looking at your currently
It has to do
affected,
with the breaststroke. No, I'm sorry.
no butterflies either. No. On your little slide that showed currently affected projects, and like I said, some of those are smaller projects. And I think that part of the recipe that you laid out was that there's a recipe analogy for you. To determine the impacts, are we going to do a study to determine the impacts on the neighborhood in that area?
Yes, I mean, all of these projects have impact analysis currently underway.
And then pay a consultant to do a feasibility study also?
Correct.
Okay.
I just have a follow-up to that. As it relates to like the traffic action plans, it would seem that a project is going to impact perhaps some of those methods of relief. In other words, you might need them to be even stronger because this project is going in. So there will be some analysis as to the relevance and magnitude of some of those items.
The traffic impact analysis that's conducted as part of each one of these projects could identify additional improvements. And if it did, then those could also just be added as mitigation measures. Those would be improvements that would be required as a part of the project, not as part of the public benefits, just because they're required as an impact from the project. So what we're talking about today, as Drew said, the icing on the cake, it's not because these projects are causing the impact, it's what more they can provide to the city on top of already mitigating all the impacts of their project.
So proving once again that a food analogy perhaps might be better.
There you go. We're swimming
right.
and we're eating tonight.
Better when it's dessert too.
Icing on the cake. You're with me. Okay, that does clarify it a little though. Thank you.
I had another question.
Eric has questions. Go ahead, Eric.
My question I have, Kohar, is, are you looking for, when I was thinking about, what would be a way, possible ways to do this, were you looking at perhaps, say, for something like, 50% of the benefit be targeted for the area of the development where the impacts are going to be felt most, and maybe 50% for San Mateo as a whole and more regional impacts, and that would be kind of areas where Councilmember Bonilla was talking about with the child care or affordable housing, things like that. Is that kind of where you were going with this?
Yes, I mean, if that's the direction the council wants to go in, then that's great.
All right.
My turn for questions. Or Amaris, you have more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had a question, just in terms of, what is the current process right now for communicating public benefits or community benefits for each project to the public? I mean, do we have a mechanism to make that transparent out and share it outward with the community so that they understand, what impact fees we're collecting, what community benefits have been negotiated? How is that process made clear?
So that's a great question. And I remember last year at the strategic planning session, Councilmember Rodriguez actually brought this up in identifying what those could be in the staff report. And I think that that's a great idea and something we could consider doing and moving forward. It's not something we currently do. The community, we haven't had a project request community benefits until these 4 came in since 2015 when Hillsdale Terrace came through. So I'm hoping we can reinvent how we kind of conduct that transparency as a part of this community benefits program that we're going to put together right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was thinking about the website with what's happening in San Mateo and development. That's one of the go-to sources that people are being directed to to literally know what's happening, and it seems like a natural place to put that information, as well as along the process.
So that's a great idea, and definitely something we could look into incorporating on our website.
Yeah. And is this a good time to raise questions about ideas to add to the menu? Is that like what is that where
Please.
we're going with this? Okay. So so I had some ideas under let's see, under housing, you know, I was thinking about the need for employee housing and workforce housing. And I know that we face some constraints, you know, in terms of fair housing laws, but it's an area that I know that the community is very interested in, and I know that this council is very committed to. And so you know, I think that that's worth highlighting as something that we deem to be a high priority and a community benefit. Or I'll speak for myself. That's what I think. And then, you know, just another area of flexibility that I've heard from folks that work in, you know, in other neighboring cities is this idea of like the land transfer acquisition, and extending that out to, you know, potentially for use for our own municipal government operations, and also for affordable housing. So land transfer acquisitions being another potential thing on the menu. The third item under housing is really looking at collaboration opportunities. You know, one of the things that has really struck me is this idea of these like deal jockeys, and how deal jockeys are really the agents behind a lot of really innovative and interesting projects that are happening. And I think that, you know, as a practice, figuring out ways that we can bring collaborations and support interesting collaborations and innovative collaborations and partnerships together with churches and with nonprofits, it could really take our strategy to a whole nother level if we highlight that as something that we really, you know, we care about and we promote. And then you know, I've been thinking also a lot about the ways that we're looking at mixed use probably being a focus moving forward, and how there are interesting economic development opportunities for mixed use spaces, and thinking about how a lot of small businesses, particularly that are in the cultural arts space, that their margins are very low, and, you know, startups and are, you know, have high risk and, you know, not a lot of money to start, and that maybe there's another way that we could think about mixed use properties supporting like incubator spaces, things that dedicated spaces that support small businesses to exist in our communities, and have support to you know, seed an idea and actually grow it. So those were some of the ideas. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on them.
Kohar, you have any immediate responses?
I think that we can add, if it's the council's desire to add those to the list specifically and prioritize them, I'd be happy to do that. I don't have any issues with any of them. I think the idea of collaboration with our nonprofits and our churches is a great one. There's an opportunity there that we could definitely leverage if we work in collaboration with one another. And we do have mixed use developments coming through. So if there was a desire to, you know, set aside some community space for incubator, I think that that's something that could definitely be part of the menu of options.
So, Kohar, to what extent was it the issue, especially in the project across the street from Central Park, that we were not able to get to a quantifiable number? I mean, so many developers, they don't care what it goes to, they don't care what stroke we're swimming, they just need to know what's the bottom line. And let me write the check. I can't write the check until you tell me how much it's going to be for and what it's going to go to, and then I can write it, and then they can move forward. And I think it's the discussion on what it goes to that sometimes bogs down the developers. Do you see some of these proposals as being more easily quantified than others?
So the project across Central Park, never even got to this point where we were talking about community benefits. It was something that died early on in the project because there was no guidelines, there was no process in order to establish even getting started on the conversation. So what I'm hoping that we can do by having some level of guidelines is that it encourages folks to say, oh, look, there's a plan on how we can have this conversation. It helps set those expectations for moving forward, how we can have those conversations with both the developer, with the city, and then with the community as a whole. The projects currently in front of you, the 4 that are in front of you, all have projects that are proposing that added height and density benefit. And what this will help is keeping those projects as proposed move along the process and provide some level of quantifiable discussion with the developer that actually makes the project still feasible to move on. So we're not saying, well, we need you to pay $500,000 in improvements when a small project of 18 units may not be able to afford that. That's
So
what's going to help.
Is somewhat tiered to the size of the project.
It could be, yes, because if you're looking at the value of the added value, the bigger the project, the more value it's going to create.
Right. And okay, I think those are all my questions for right now. Diane, you have another question?
Just one more question. Is it that these 4 projects that you've referred to, Kohar, you're looking to do a development agreement with those folks?
So the 3 projects along El Camino don't need a development agreement because the general plan already allows for this conversation to take place kind of built in to the general plan policies. The only development agreement we're currently going to be negotiating is with Concar Passage, the Passages project. The other 3 are just part of the project proposal, and they'll come forward for council for approval with a community benefit package.
Okay, so okay.
So perhaps I can add a little clarity to that, because there are, for most places in the community, the standards that apply to the project do not involve this community benefit conversation. There are designated areas in the community, designated in the general plan, that give the property owner, the developer, a choice. They can apply for a project that complies with the general standards, or they can, in these designated areas, ask for additional heights and densities if they provide something above and beyond the ordinary requirements, the ordinary standards, that is a community benefit. And there's no definition around what that term means, and it's been historically ad hoc. And I think what staff is looking for is to provide some sense from the council, not precise that it's got to be 10% of the value of the project, but just some sense of what it is that the council is looking for. Do you prioritize the neighborhood's interests? Do you prioritize, a broader community interest as defined by the council or commission or some other body? Their staff is looking for some sort of guidance that they can provide to developers. This is what it's going to look like, as opposed to just a black box to an applicant who comes in and says, I really have no idea what you're looking for. So that's what this effort is about, is sort of a conversation about what is it that's important to the council that can be highlighted to applicants who are considering making applications for, in those 3 cases, additional heights and densities.
Eric, you had another question?
Yeah, one more question. Sorry. Kohar, you mentioned that we in developing the list of different of the menu items, that we did extensive outreach, and it's no surprise that housing and circulation came up on top. But have you done any outreach among the community and the neighborhoods about the idea of kind of localized benefits versus citywide benefits?
No, I have not had that direct conversation or question asked of the community.
Okay. because that strikes me as just what I've heard the various public comments in the past. This is one of these times where I think that if a lot of the community knew kind of what was at stake in this, I know this is just a discussion, but it's going to set the wheels in motion, that we would get a lot more comment on this and a lot more perspectives on this, especially from the surrounding neighborhoods that are around a lot of these big projects, especially Concar passages. So.
Can I?
Sorry, Amaris, did you want to go first?
Sorry. Well, I guess I just wanted I wanted to follow up with what Councilmember Rodriguez was raising in terms of us as a council having a clear understanding about, you know, sort of the baseline requirements of what the city the baseline standard of what the city requires is primarily focused on citywide improvements and citywide investments. And so what we're talking about here is that in excess and the opportunity to either direct that to citywide projects or more neighborhood specific projects. But the baseline is really heavily focused on citywide improvements. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. So for any of these projects, they would be required to pay a transportation improvement fee. And it's a percentage of the project based on the number of units, and that goes into the city's capital improvement program and gets distributed to whatever projects are on the list that are included under the TIF. So that is a citywide transportation fee. Same with the park impact and park in lieu fees. The projects are required to provide a certain number of a certain percentage of open space, and the rest of it they have to pay. They get a credit for some, up to 50%, and then the rest they have to pay the in lieu fees. And then those get allocated by what's in the park master plan, or as the council directs those capital projects to move forward. So those fees that are included as part of the development project are more citywide and not necessarily used for the streets and sidewalks right adjacent to that development project that's being proposed.
I also wanted to piggyback on Eric's comments, Councilmember Rodriguez, and also on what Kohar just said. So it seems to me that we don't, if our interest is to serve the community where this project is going, if our interest is to help the process, then keeping the community benefit to the localized area, the area that we feel is impacted by the project, and directing the community benefit to the actual impact, which more often than not is going to be people. It's going to be transportation of people. It's going to be multimodal transportation, whether it's helping pedestrians or bicyclists or cars move around more freely in that neighborhood. It makes the project better. Anyway, I think I'm getting to comments. I should wait. Is there any public comment on this agenda item, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 7 at this time. So I will
read fast.
Okay.
We did do outreach for this meeting.
So the first comment is from Pat Callahan from Prometheus Real Estate Group. And as a developer and longtime employer based in San Mateo, in the process of moving that employment base to downtown to support the downtown, Prometheus and other responsible developers would benefit from changes that provide clarity and detail to the community benefit process. And then I just want to do a quick add-on for him. I think on the prior item, he pressed send after we had just closed public comment, but he had a quick comment. Sure. That your comment about the apartment development market softening pre-COVID is correct. Pre-COVID construction costs reached a point that have caused a number of reputable housing developers to consider taking a pause. So those are those two, or one person. Okay, then our next comment is from Jordan Grimes, who, Council, thank you for your willingness to step up and tackle an issue that should have been dealt with by previous councils many years ago. When it comes to community benefits for new housing developments, I want to strongly request that type of benefit, that is increased amounts of affordable housing and land dedication, etc., and concerns of the overall community be prioritized over concerns of the immediate neighborhood. Missing the forest for the trees has been a very real and visceral issue in regard to housing production, or lack thereof, over the years, and it's now more important than ever to ensure we act as one community and create public policy that benefits the many and the most disadvantaged over the few. Next comment is from Adam Lorraine. Good evening, City Council and staff. Please consider bike ped and active transportation infrastructure improvements related to height and density, accommodations, and future developments. There are multiple clear relationships here, some of which were noted by Councilmember Bonilla when discussing new RENA numbers earlier. The Council just passed an ambitious bicycle master plan without clear funding for it. Not only could such community benefits help fund some of these improvements, it will be necessary to make such improvements in the areas getting such developments. It's important to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet the targets in the Climate Action Plan update the Council just passed. It's important to reduce traffic congestion in the city, a perennial Council and city priority, and it will provide important quality of life benefits to the neighborhoods impacted by those developments. A win-win-win. Thank you. Okay, then this one is from Brian Myers, from California Coastal Properties, developer of the proposed Passage San Mateo project. Thank you, Mayor Goethals and members of the council. My name is Brian Myers, partner in the proposed project Passage at San Mateo. I can't tell you how much we appreciate the city staff and city council continuing their hard work under the current circumstances. I appreciate the detailed information and guidance from the city staff on this topic. I just want to highlight that our proposed project does not require a general plan amendment or zone change, so the benefit to the owner developer of the development agreement is limited to longer term vesting versus other DAs that are seeking special exceptions to zoning or the general plan. Having said that, we have proposed a development agreement that has many community benefits, including additional affordable housing, ped bikeway improvements surrounding the project, on-site daycare, an on-site transit mobility hub, community theater space, a commitment to PCE's renewable energy program, on-site publicly accessible park space, and extensive off-site park and transportation fees. While our crystal ball on the impact to our future economy, including our project, is clouded by current events, we look forward to getting local labor back to work through this project and producing much needed housing. In our numerous meetings within the local neighborhoods in Fiesta Gardens, Bay Meadows, and 19th Avenue Park, we respectfully request the City Council focus on the fair share participation in the potential circulation improvements to 19th Avenue to reduce cut-through traffic impacts from State Route 92 and US 101 interchange in the neighborhood. We realize the exact terms of our DA will negotiate later, but we want to express our desire to prioritize the items we've already included in our proposed community benefit package, plus local neighborhood traffic circulation improvements. Thank you for your consideration on this item. And then next is number 8. And that is from Marcus Gilmore from Lane Partners. Thank you for providing the community a platform to stay involved in these discussions during these uncertain times. On behalf of my company, Lane Partners, I'd like to extend our support of the recommendations in the agenda report regarding the community benefit process. As developers, we deal with plenty of embedded risk and uncertainty through the life of a project. Implementing a community benefit framework that provides clarity to the process will result in a win-win for both the community and the developer. The recommendation to establish a prioritized community benefits list and to use a third-party economic consultant has worked in other Bay Area cities we've built in, and we support implementing this process in San Mateo. Item 10. John Stone, also of Prometheus Real Estate Group, states, I would like to express my support of any steps that would facilitate and clarify the community benefits process within the city of San Mateo. And let's see, number 11, from Lisa Diaz-Nash. Any future housing development that wishes to successfully attract and retain a diversity of dwellers over the long term must have the following elements. 1, integration of market rate housing and affordable housing units within the same buildings as opposed to payment of an in lieu fee or creation of affordable housing segregated to another area. 2, convenient, safe, and reliable public transit implemented at the same time as the housing development to motivate people to leave their vehicles at home, prevent traffic jams, and reduce climate emissions. 3, provision of on-site, high-quality, affordable child care facilities so that working parents can feel comfortable about the care of their children and be able to afford it. As such, I recommend that the top 3 requirements for community benefit in future development projects are: first, additional affordable housing units above the inclusionary or density bonus requirement. Note these units should be integrated into the development project, not segregated to another project. 2, contribution for last mile transportation services, that is shuttles. And 3, provide child care within project. All 3 of these community benefits are critical to enabling working families to live and work in San Mateo and to strengthening the vibrancy of our city. Thank you. I believe that is all the comments. I want to just refresh and double check. Make sure nothing else has come in, and that is everything.
Is it inappropriate for me to ask you if you have refreshed?
I just refreshed.
Okay.
Very good.
Excellent. I will bring it back. So I'll close the public comment period, bring it back to the council, and Koharv, tonight what you want from us is to answer the 2 questions that are on the screen right now.
Yes.
And
yes,
and it's fair to say that it's your strong recommendation that we go with both of these, that the independent third party is a fair way to go about this, and secondly, that the improvements should be based on community neighborhood improvement, and being close to the project not only makes the project better, but can mitigate any impact that the local neighborhood feels is there. That's your recommendation? Okay.
That is my recommendation. And you know, just to kind of touch on that, the amount from some of these projects, like I mentioned, is not going to be a whole lot. So it's not going to really move the needle in a big citywide project as much as it would in the immediate neighborhood of where the project is being located.
And to that point, some of the negotiations with these developers could be that they do the work themselves. That can speed up the process and increase the benefit to the neighborhood. If the developer is doing the improvement, it means that the city doesn't have to wait till we have the time and resources to actually get to it ourselves. Is that a fair point?
That is a fair point. In my conversations with our public works team, that is the preference, that it be the amenity or the improvement be provided as part of the project as opposed to just a fee being collected.
Great. I want to open it up to comments from all council members, and at the end I will I'm happy to actually, we're not voting, you just want our input on this, so please, yep. All council members, make sure that you've been heard before we move on.
I just have one thing I'd just like to highlight for purposes of the public chiming in, and that is that—
Is that you, Rick? Rick, go ahead.
No, it's Diane.
Is my voice really deep?
No, I'm just
Diane was doing a great job.
Just having a little.
Should I start growing a beard too?
Meeting fun. I'm sorry.
You've been sitting there so long, Diane.
No, I just wanted to highlight. This is not. I'm not, commenting, but I just wanted to highlight that the analysis would be reimbursed by the applicant. So for folks chiming in at home, it is not that this would be a city expense to get a third-party consultant. You might have said that. I didn't hear you say it, but I know it's in the staff report, and I just wanted to highlight it. That's all.
Diane, you have a beautiful voice. I was just giving you a hard time. I'm so sorry.
Yes, thank you for confirming that. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I got comments.
Go ahead, Diane.
Thank you. What did I say? Okay.
Rick, I want to hear you raise your voice a few octaves.
Yes, exactly. So listen, regarding what Brian Myers from the Passage Project referred to, which was longer-term vesting. I've been around for a few of these larger projects. Bay Meadows, I think, had an 18-year project labor agreement. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, that too. But a development agreement. Because the point is, with the bigger projects, they need to make sure that the conditions that they were approved under are going to follow the project all the way through. And it gives them a period of time under which they have a permit to keep working until they finish. And so that's been true with Station Park Green, with the Hines development, Bay Meadows. It's a very useful thing. And it's because the one thing that all developers really value very highly, most over anything else, is stability. They really need to know what to expect. Not exactly, it's just a good idea. Okay, so I think the idea with the feasibility study and going forward to try and determine exactly what is going to be a proper fit for public benefits. And I think going into the period we're going into now, which is unprecedented, we have to have creative solutions. And I'm glad to see that our staff, sorry about that, is thinking outside the box, okay? Bringing us some flexibility, and we're doing it based on the unique characteristics, I think, of each individual project, where it's located in, what the needs and perceived impacts of the public are, versus what the actual impacts are too. So these things all have to be fine-tooth combed, okay, to get them to a point where we can make these things happen smoother, quicker, easier. And I think that's our goal, is to have less pain in getting these projects to where they can actually be approved. So I totally support this. I thank you, and I thank all the commenters too, who I think did a great job. And so the staff, my fellow council members, the Oscar board. Thank you.
Rick, you're a funny man. You're a funny man. I liked it.
Parents.
I have comments.
I heard, so I want to recap a little bit. So I heard Diane say yes, yes, and yes. I heard Rick say yes, yes, and yes. I'm saying yes, yes, and yes. Eric and Ammo, please feel free to join with your comments and any other thing that you have to say.
Okay. I think there's a reason why our whole criteria has been so vague and it's taken us so long to update it, is because, you know, every project is different and priorities change, and we like as much flexibility as possible. But it's obvious right now that that's not working as well as it could, and we need to change. So how do we go about that? That's how I'm kind of framing how I'm thinking about it. The first part, the independent third party, the economic feasibility, I think that is a great idea, and that's an easy decision for me. When it comes to how we use these funds, I mean, the way I'm looking at it is that, as Councilmember Lee pointed out, and this is what I was thinking too, all of the fees that go with normal projects, those fees are really geared towards the city as a whole. But when the project is gonna add some extra height, I really think it makes sense to focus those extra funds, instead of being a drop in the bucket somewhere else, but put them where they can work to help the adjoining community that's going to be taking in these new neighbors and new residents, and make, as Mayor Goethals said, the project better, because I do think it makes it better. It makes it easier to swallow a lot of the increased density and housing that we're going to need to take if we're going to even come close to our RHNA numbers that we were talking about earlier. So I would personally prefer that the majority, if not all the funds of these additional funds that we're talking about, go to the local area. And I would think most of them would probably be best spent on circulation and transportation issues. those are my thoughts.
Okay, well said.
I'd just like to say for the record, there was a food analogy in there.
What?
I'm getting hungry again. I'm getting hungry. My salad did not put me over. Okay, Amaranth, do you have comments?
I do, yes. So I'm really excited about this this whole plan. I see the need. You know, when I started on the general plan subcommittee, I asked Ron how many projects had ever gone above the height the maximum height and density, and in 30 years I think it's less than 5. And so this is a clear area of in our policy that has been a gap and has been has inhibited some of our progress. And so to be able to tackle this is very exciting. The way that the staff has laid it out, I'm in total agreement. It makes perfect sense to me to use a universally applicable, quantifiable process that is that's also proportional. So I'm very much in favor of the independent third-party economic feasibility analysis that is paid for by the applicant. So that makes perfect sense to me. The second question, I also agree that there's so much that's already weighted in favor of citywide benefit that's baked into the standard process. To go above height and density has real impact to surrounding neighborhoods, and it makes a lot of sense in terms of getting the process of getting community input and then having benefits be more directed to those communities. It is something that I am strongly in favor of. I also will say, though, with a caveat, that I really do want this to be a clear framework that allows for flexibility. And there are some areas where I feel like I want to personally highlight as priority areas. So number one, I really do think that, you know, the extent that we can support multimodal, sustainable transportation in the surrounding area, I think that's worth being a call out, because we have so many infrastructure projects, like, you know, executing on the bicycle master plan, executing on the climate action plan, that at this point don't have dedicated funding. And so this is a way to resource those needs. And so I do think that that's worth calling out as a priority. Secondly, from housing, you know, I strongly support affordable housing. When we think about affordable housing, I think that, you know, the point of acquisition of existing market rate housing units to convert to affordable, to the extent that that could be possible with some larger projects, that is an essential preservation strategy that could very likely, in most cases, would pencil out to reap way more affordable units than doing them integrated in the project. And so I think that it's incredibly important when we think about affordable housing strategies with 3 Ps, that we're not missing the boat. We're not limiting and narrowing our ability to jump on preservation strategies that will keep our community members in place. So our existing community members that live in naturally occurring affordable units that can be acquired and then that can be deeded in perpetuity to remain affordable and enter into our BMR program. So that's a really important opportunity that we have not been able to do because of the way that Measure P has been written, that I think it is allowable with the community benefit in excess being defined in this way. And so those things for me are really important call outs, and I'm really excited to support this.
If I could follow up on the 2 points that you just made, Amaranth. First, I have a question for Kohar. As part of a developer agreement, can we put funds from the developer into preserving affordable housing that is off-site?
We, yes, it would go into our housing fund, and then the council would then be able to program how those funds are used. I'm not sure that we would collect enough to be able to do what we want to do in terms of, converting naturally occurring market rate units into an affordable housing complex. But it's definitely something we could explore and come back and talk to council about. I know Kathy, Sandy, and I have been having some conversations with people about what that looks like, and there's still a lot of questions about how that whole thing can pan out. But we can put it in a fund. It might take several years, maybe a decade, to get enough money to do something with it, but it's definitely an option.
But we've done it. We partnered with HIP Housing to preserve those 20 units in the building by
Monte Diablo.
Thank you.
It would require partnerships, absolutely, yes. But I'm just saying, if the city were to just collect the money and try to do something by ourselves, it would take a while.
I had one more question, which is, I think, for Sean, and it goes to Amaranth's point that currently under Measure P, we cannot take money from a developer in order to preserve affordable housing off-site, even if it was a lot more units than were being required because of the limitations of Measure P. Is that correct?
That's right. In terms of the initial, baseline requirement that's established by Measure P, build the units on site. Now, through a development agreement, you have the opportunity to do more than that baseline requirement, right? And you have more freedom with that.
But it would have to be on top of, not
right.
It couldn't be a greater percentage. Understood.
Right.
Thank you very much for the subtlety, and I think those are important points that Councilmember Lee was making, and I'm glad that I understood them. Is there any other comment?
I'd like to.
Please, Rick.
Yeah. So I don't think I really addressed the second question. I do favor trying to keep benefits closer to the actual project. For instance, case in point, it's not standing there yet, but Hillsdale Terraces, we did manage to collect for in the agreement, which they have not executed because they don't have a permit. But the agreement was $400,000 to improve 28th Avenue from El Camino up to Mason with green infrastructure and bicycle infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So that was something that is serving that local neighborhood. But when you think about bicycle and green infrastructure, the benefit of that accrues to everybody in the city, even if it's not directly next to the project. So I think these things, we need to have some flexibility to do this at the places where it needs to be, because maybe there's a dangerous area that needs to be addressed, right? So that said, I'm still in support of this.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else want to comment?
I just have one thing I'd like to say. For me, with respect to housing, because we have such a great housing shortage right this second, timing would be very important for me. So if one of those items can be done faster than another, for example, if you increase the number of inclusionary housing units in the project you're building, that would be really important to me. So, because we've got a lot of families in need right away. So I just want people to know that's where my leaning would be as it relates to the housing part of it.
Thank you very much, Diane. And I want to comment on the conversation that we've had. I think this has been a very helpful, meaningful conversation on what we can do as a council to not only make things easier for developers. Developers want things to be not necessarily easy. They know we're not going to make it easy, but they want it to be straightforward. They want to know what's the conversation that needs to be had. So to make things clearer for them is important. But I think what you've heard us say unanimously is that we want so much of that benefit and mitigation to stay with the neighborhood, with the local community, and to have their voices heard in that input. So Kohar, thank you so much for bringing this conversation to us. Go hug your babies.
Thank you very much for your comments and feedback.
Thank you, Kohar. I'm going to close this agenda item and move on to the next one. We are on agenda item 14. Drew, are you still with us?
I am. Let me find my presentation.
some of us found unique and interesting ways to get haircuts this week. So congratulations to both of us.
All right. Is everyone able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So this is this week's update on COVID-19. So just operationally, since the last week, there was a new order issued by the health officer, which extended the shelter in place until May the 3rd. That was issued last Tuesday. It was provided for additional restrictions and was also provided some clarity of existing restrictions. So a couple things I wanted to point out on that was additional restrictions on construction, which limited residential construction to affordable housing. But also put additional restrictions / clarification on gardening and landscaping, and it allows it only for health and safety purposes.
Drew, can I pause for just a second?
Yes.
Are you on item 15?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm 16.
Am I on the wrong item? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We can do them in whichever order you want, but item 14 has to do with the subcommittee recommendations that we got from. Is it you on both of these items, Drew?
It's me on both of these items. I can switch back.
It's
I'd
fine.
say
You
keep
film
going.
whatever, yes,
Okay,
keep going.
my apologies.
Keep going. No, it's my. I'm the cruise
Actually,
director. The cruise director is telling me that we are on the wrong item. But
Save the sailors.
We are going to take item 15 now, and then you can do 14 after. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. So to address those two issues, we've been adjusting our operations to enhance education and enforcement. So for the residential construction item, we've got a phone line open with the building inspectors, so complaints can be brought in and we can investigate them. Similarly, on the park side, the parks line is open, taking calls and responding to complaints on gardening and landscaping. We're also having folks out kind of roaming the neighborhoods a bit to see who's out there and providing. We've got an educational flyer that we're providing to both the gardeners and the residents as well. Additionally, based on some feedback we've gotten recently, as of today, or actually starting tomorrow, we're going to not be enforcing metered parking downtown through the end of the shelter in place. And then with some additional coordination this evening between Public Works and the police department, we are still street sweeping in our commercial areas, including downtown, but we're going to hold off on enforcement for the time being and see how that works. Additionally, many new restrictions on our recreation programs. We've had to cancel all of our spring programming in recreation. Our field and facility reservations have been canceled through May. Starting today, we started home delivery of senior lunches through our CERT volunteers. We're also working on expanding our virtual recreation offerings, and we're still at this point assessing summer programs and other special events, and we'll continue to update council as we make decisions about having to cancel programs. So as far as the employees go, our essential employees are continuing to report to work. The definition of essential is having to expand with the extension of the order. We did kind of bare bones maintenance on our infrastructure and assets over the first couple of weeks, but as the order has been extended for another month, we're going to need to do more robust maintenance. We are working to ensure that our employees, though, are able to work safely. One of the things that we're going to be doing is having employees in Public Works that are in the field. They're not going to be sharing a truck. We may have some actually driving their own vehicles to work sites and then reimbursing for mileage to allow employees to work safely and make sure they're complying with social distancing protocols. For our non-essential employees, they're going to continue to work from home as best as they can. This will include 10 hours of approved training per week. Any of their non-productive hours, instead of being charged to paid admin leave, will either be charged to their employee leave banks, or the employees can request to be redeployed. And I'll talk about that a little more in a few slides. So this week we're transitioning and we'll have no paid admin leave past April the 11th. For our per diem employees, similarly, the essential employees are continuing to report to work. For the non-essential employees, they are either utilizing their existing leave banks or they're taking furlough and utilizing enhanced unemployment benefits, and we've given them resources on those enhanced benefits to anyone who's been affected. Per diem employees also may request to be redeployed, but we are going to prioritize those assignments to merit employees as best as possible. And that transition is also occurring this week with no admin leave past April the 11th. In terms of the redeployment, the temporary task force is working on developing the core infrastructure to actually facilitate the redeployments. And that would be from one department to another. That would be to a special city assignment in either business outreach, or community assistance, which could include redeployment to a nonprofit organization that's serving throughout this crisis. And then finally, potential redeployment to the stimulus funding task force. And I'll give updates on all three of those task force in the next several slides. Departments are also doing some redeployments within the departments, and that's not actually going through the task force. The departments are just handling that on their own. And we will see, I expect to see a lot of that in Public Works and Parks and Recreation as they're shifting around employees to meet the greatest needs. So business outreach, just wanted to give an update on kind of what we've been doing there and where we're going next. As I mentioned last week, we've added resources to the economic development team to enhance services. Those new team members have been educated on the programs and the assistance that are available for small businesses. We've added information to our business resources webpage that's been up now for about 10 days. That includes an approved lenders list that we've created and an FAQ document. We did an analysis on the SAMCETA Business Impact Survey, and that information is driving sort of the outreach calls that we're going to start doing, which we're compiling that list for now. So over the next week or so, we're going to continue to track the CARES Act as it relates to small business assistance, continuing our coordination with the Chamber and DSMA. We've actually been providing some direct assistance to DSMA on advertising and social media promotions. We're going to finish up the call script and train the new folks on the outreach calls that need to be made. And then by the end of this week, we hope to have 100 direct business contacts this week to go through things like the assistance that's available to small businesses in the form of loans, information for their employees about enhanced unemployment, if that's necessary, and then information about the commercial rent eviction moratorium. So in terms of community assistance, that task force is working to identify both internal and external opportunities to support redeployment. Sandy Council has been leading up that task force, and she's connected with a number of different nonprofits, and that could include volunteering directly through a nonprofit like a Samaritan House or a Second Harvest, or some of the nonprofits that she's talked with actually have special assignments that could potentially be done by employees from home and then submitted to the nonprofit. So it wouldn't be direct service, but they do have some assignments. So we're working to expand that as needed to redeploy our employees. As far as stimulus funding goes, that group is analyzing the CARES Act funding. That act has about 45 different buckets of funding. We've already identified opportunities for police and fire and CDBG. One of the big aspects of the CARES funding package is $150 billion that's getting split amongst the states. I believe California's allocation is about $15 billion. Now, the caveat on this funding is that of that $15 billion that the state is getting, any entity, whether it be a city or a county of over 500,000 in population, gets a direct allocation that gets netted out of the state's share. So for cities and counties under 500,000 in population, it's really up to the state as to how it gets allocated. And so we don't know what the plan is for the allocation at this point. We're tracking it closely. We know that the National League of Cities has submitted a letter requesting that in the next stimulus package that something be dedicated specifically to the smaller and mid-sized cities. And this group is also coordinating with the business outreach team on funding opportunities and loan opportunities for businesses. So in addition to the operational changes that have already happened over the course of the last week, a couple other items I'd like council confirmation on is Given where things are right now, I want to hold off on insourcing fleet services and downtown cleaning. I do think both of those things will go forward, come forward at some point in the future. But we had initially planned to have all that in place by the beginning of the fiscal year, and that's just not a reality with where things are. So we want to step back and assess things a little bit more when the dust settles, and then bring it back for council consideration at a future date. We also, I'm recommending that we defer May rent for tenants of city-owned properties. A few meetings ago, council approved deferring April rents, and with the shelter-in-place order lasting through May the 3rd, we thought we'd go ahead and defer the May rent as well. And then finally, I'm looking for confirmation tonight from council on the actions I've taken in response to the emergency proclamation, which would be the adjustments to the operations, the adjustments to the deployment of personnel, and then the other items from the prior slide. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Excuse me. Does anyone have questions? Diane, I saw your hand raised. You're looking for food analogies. I think Drew just gave you a plate full of vegetables.
There's no icing on the cake.
Vegetables are good. I just was curious, how much is that rent deferment? I don't recall it being a huge amount, but I just can't remember.
Oh, gosh. I want to say that for all of our tenants that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000.
Okay.
This is Kathy Kleinbaum. So it's right now with our current tenants that are paying rent, because right now the Rise Pizzeria is not yet paying rent. It's only about $13,000 a month.
Okay. I wondered where Rise was and all of that. Okay. Okay. And so I'll wait till comments. That was my question, though.
Great. Any other questions from council members? Amarantz, you can ask your question as soon as you unmute yourself.
I had a question about the CDBG process. If you, Drew, if you've thought, if you have some more ideas on how that would look.
In terms of the allocation of funding? No, we just learned, I think late last week, about what our number was going to be, which I believe it's going to be a little over $400,000. And I know Sandy's looking into how that money can be used. So it's not just a matter of you have money, you can kind of do whatever you want with it that's CDBG related. We're trying to figure out exactly how we can utilize the funds. So it's still TBD at this point.
Okay. And then what will the process be for determining how, like, once we know what way it can be used or what parameters we're working with, what's the process in terms of who decides on that?
Well, I think we'd come back to council with some recommendations and some ideas on how the funding could be utilized.
Okay.
After the community Resource Commission, they deal with it first.
Relations.
That's what I meant. I was trying to read your lips, Diane.
Those folks.
So it would go through the Community Relations Commission for input?
I think it does. Drew, what do you think?
I think Sandy might be on the line and could provide the process overview.
Yes, can you hear me? This is Sandy, Council.
Yes, we can.
Hi.
Okay, so typically the CRC reviews the budget for CDBG and makes the allocation of our community funding grants to the various nonprofits.
Right.
So what we need to decide, and I put some options together, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it internally before we bring it to you, is do we continue that? Do we do something offline? I know we want to try to make this process as quick as possible so we can get the money out. HUD's given us some waivers on the timing of things, which will help us. But
that commission is a
we need to do. There's
particularly
two things we need
thoughtful
to
group
do.
of people.
Pardon me?
That commission's a particularly thoughtful and essential group of people. Their input would be valued.
This is kind of their baby. This is what they do each year. And the one thing that we still have remaining is we need to approve our budget for our regular money. It's drafted, but we haven't had the community process yet. And then number two is the new money. Do we just funnel it through our regular process, or do we do something special? Those are all things to be considered. And I'm in the midst of drafting some of the options so that we can weigh them.
I'm confident that the Community Relations Commission would dedicate those resources wherever Drew told them to do that.
I think the consideration is we would when we have a better idea about where we think the money should go, I think we're going to want to convene that group as quickly as possible, because I think the whole purpose of these extra allocations is to get the money out quickly.
Yes.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. So we can schedule that quickly, all of it.
And this is an order of magnitude more than we're allocating on an annual basis.
Yes, for example, our budget for this year, the grant amount from CDBG for our regular program, if you will, is about $750,000, and we're getting like $440 just in the special money. So it's a significant amount of money compared to our normal budget, and it has more flexibility on what it can be used for.
Great. Any other questions for Drew or this presentation?
No questions, but okay. I want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor. In looking at what he's looking for in council confirmation, I think that I want to say I'm very proud of the way that he has adjusted the way the city is running. He's reassigned personnel.
Rick, would you let me check and see if there's any public comment?
Sure. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm going to go right back to you.
Yeah.
Diane, Patrice, is there any public comment? Patrice is on the shuffleboard court. Patrice, can you come back from the shuffleboard court and let us know if there's any public? There is public comment. I'm going to. You're not muted. You know what, Rick? Let's hear your comments. What was it that you wanted to say? Oh,
thanks.
No, Patrice just told me there is no public comment. So public comment period's closed, and we'll go to council member comments. Go ahead, Rick.
Thank you very much. So I just want to say I'm very proud of the way Drew and the rest of our staff is handling going through this crisis time. I'm very concerned about how long this all could last. I know that we're doing everything we can to make it as doable as possible within the limitations that we have. And I appreciate all of the staff who are being redeployed to do things that are not normally their assignments, but I'm very happy that they feel that they want to go ahead and do these things. It helps all of the people of the city so much, and it makes us a bigger city and a better city. And the information from the prior slide, what was that again, Drew? Yeah, you can hold off on those. I think that's fine.
Excellent, Rick. Thank you so much. Well said. Other council members and public comment, or other council member comments, excuse me.
I'll go.
Thank you, Diane.
I just wanted to tell you, Drew, I was delighted to see the affirmative outreach to our business community by way of direct phone calls. How can we help? I think that's going to go a long way, and I'm absolutely ecstatic to see it. Those are my comments.
Fantastic. Thank you, Diane.
I'll go.
Eric?
Yeah, I definitely want to echo both Councilmember Bonilla's comments and Councilmember Pappin's comments. Thank you very much for all that you're doing, Drew, not only to you, but your entire team. We're in good hands here, and your work and your team's work is very much appreciated. Thank you. I also, just to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Councilmember Pappin just said, I think it's going to be so important for San Mateo businesses, especially the small ones, to get their application for the PPP Paycheck Protection Plan, or whatever it stands for, ASAP, because they are going to run out of funds, and it's basically it's money that's designed exactly for what they need right now. So if you can somehow get that information out really quickly, what I'm afraid of is everybody's doing it and it's going to run out. So it's going to be first come, first served. They may or may not add to it. That's all I have to say. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent point. Thank you, Eric. Cameron's?
I was just so happy to see not only that, the praise coming from our council in terms of the job that you're doing, Sean and Drew, but also from the community. We've received so many emails thanking us and thanking the staff. And I think that people are really feeling incredible pride for how our city has responded. And I participated on a national call with other electeds, and the fact that we are redirecting our staff to do direct services and community-facing services, supporting our nonprofits, supporting our businesses, is it's really unique. And it does set us apart in terms of us showing up for our community, and the fact that we are able to do that, that we've thought to do that, and we're executing it in such a a mindful way, in a conscientious way, in a collaborative way. I think is it's really a proud moment for all of us, and I'm so grateful for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll echo that too. You are the right leader at the right place at the right time, and we appreciate it very much. There's no sacrifice that you would ask anybody on your team to make that you wouldn't make yourself. And the preparation that you're making is for the health of the city so that we can maintain services for all residents. And there's nothing more important that we do. So thank you for that, and please continue to do it. With that, I think I'll make the motion that we approve and accept all of the actions that Drew has taken thus far. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please respond to Patrice.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, Mayor Goethals?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen?
I may have muted her accidentally. There she is.
Aye, sorry.
Okay, and Councilmember Bonilla?
Rick?
Stop muting Rick, Mayor.
I know. Keep muting him.
I'm all in. Thanks.
Okay. Fantastic.
So, Mayor, if I could just briefly, I just wanted to give credit where credit is due, which is in two places. First, to our city staff who have stepped up in difficult circumstances, been incredibly flexible, and really thought about the community first in terms of getting the resources where it's needed. Throughout the organization, there's been tremendous support. And also like to thank the council for its support of city staff and all the things that we're doing. It's greatly appreciated and does not go unnoticed throughout the organization. So thank you.
Thank you, Drew. I'm going to direct you back to item 14, which for future reference goes before item 15.
I jumped in the wrong lane of the pool. I'm sorry. I got disqualified from the meeting.
And I'll remind everybody that Churchill said, occasionally we must laugh among the skulls. No leader in history maybe faced as dark days as Churchill, and so reminding us that we need laughter in order to lift our spirits in these dark days is important. And of course, staying safe, staying home, and staying positive are all part of these lighthearted moments. So, Drew, with that, on to item 14.
Item 14. So this is item on COVID-19 donations. So by way of background, we had a couple of private companies that contacted the city to inquire about providing financial assistance to help mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. Council formed a subcommittee to develop a policy about getting financial assistance. Council members Pappen and Lee were selected to be on that subcommittee. And they then communicated with the private companies to discuss their interest, understand kind of what they were looking to do, what kind of support they were looking to provide. And based on that feedback, based on the company's interest, a couple of recommendations were formed. The first one is that the recommendation is for the city to accept direct donations to support COVID-19 efforts, predominantly in the way of supporting police and fire, providing direct support for our first responders, and also supporting the library to assist with digital divide issues, which are really prevalent, especially during this period of online learning. It's critical that we close that digital divide while students are forced to work from home. And then for entities who want suggestions on nonprofits to support, we came up with a list of 4, the Samaritan House, St. Vincent de Paul, Peninsula Family Services, and the San Mateo Foster City School District. And so the rationale on this recommendation was, number one, the city does support the San Mateo County Strong Fund, but that fund is in the early stages with fund distribution still to be determined. And really believe the priority here is getting funding quickly to critical service providers. I know one of the companies was very interested in doing something quickly, and so we wanted to be able to provide some guidance so that we didn't miss our opportunity. And then the rationale for the 4 nonprofits that we're recommending, we recommend to fund potential funders if they want to go that route, as opposed to providing funding directly to the city. Samaritan House obviously is a core health and human services agency that provides an essential safety net and is right here locally. St. Vincent de Paul is also locally and primarily working on homeless prevention and a help center, and is also a critical safety net provider. Peninsula Family Services aligns with the council priority to help support the supply of childcare, and it's also not designated as a priority for the SMC Strong Fund. And then the San Mateo Foster City School District, they are working to close the digital divide that's crucial during this transition to online learning. And so any support that they can get to do that, I think, will be well served in the community. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions or feedback on the recommendations.
Any questions from council members? Any public comment? Patrice?
No, sir, we do not have any public comment on this item.
Then I'll bring it back to the council for any final questions or comments.
Okay.
Eric?
Yeah, I just want to say kudos to staff and our subcommittee. I think those 4 organizations are spot on. I mean, I think those are the best possible ones you guys could have chose. So thank you. Thank you for your work.
Totally agree. Great job. Anybody else?
Just want to say thank you. More good work. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Big time kudos to that subcommittee. With that having been said, we vote on this, don't we? Yes, so we're going to approve. We're going to vote to approve. I will make the motion that we approve the city council recommendations from the COVID financial subcommittee regarding the distribution. We have motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please take the votes. Roll call vote.
Okay, Mayor Goethals.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Yes. Aye.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Aye, aye, aye.
Okay. Excellent. That passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. That concludes all of our business on the agenda for tonight. We're now into reports and announcements. Drew, during his presentation, mentioned one of the announcements, which has to do with parking enforcement. The police department will be changing their parking enforcement, and I believe most parking is not being enforced. Is that right?
That's correct.
During this period of time, police officers are being redeployed to more critical areas. And
so,
go ahead, Drew.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, just to clarify, we're not planning on enforcing the metered parking in the downtown or the street sweeping, which is at this point concentrated to downtown and the commercial areas. But we do have the contract parking enforcement staff, and we're redeploying them to enforce other violations, though, things in the neighborhoods like the red curbs, the rolled curb parking, fire hydrants, crosswalks, handicapped spaces, things like that. So we will be doing some enforcement, but we're going to target it and move away from downtown enforcement.
Hey, Drew, if I may ask a question?
Yes.
Through the mayor. Does that parking enforcement include the 2-hour parking in Bay Meadows? I've been getting some questions from Bay Meadows residents asking about that.
I might have to get back to you on that. I don't know if Chief Barberini knows specifically if that's included or not. If we don't know, we can get back to you tomorrow with an answer.
Sure, thank you.
Chief, are you on?
Yes, I am. I think right now.
It's okay.
Take it over.
We can just barely hear you, Chief. Go ahead.
We'll take that as a maybe.
So if it's okay with the council, we'll follow up tomorrow with the answer specific to Bay Meadows.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you, Chief. A couple other quick things. Number one, there has been a discussion in San Mateo lately about hate speech, about hate crimes and things of that nature. And I think it's never been more important for all of us in San Mateo to stand together and stand against that kind of speech and those kinds of actions that attempt to divide us. And I think that all of us as a council want to make sure that people understand that those kinds of messages have no place here in San Mateo. I want to reiterate that the district attorney's office is prosecuting price gouging. The district attorney's office will be prosecuting any wrongful evictions. And also, some people have brought up a concern that there's going to be a spike in domestic violence. I think
Sorry.
And there's never a good time for domestic violence. And to the extent that people are under significant pressure in their homes with their families right now, it's no excuse, and it will continue to be prosecuted. And everyone should be aware of that and look out for your friends and loved ones. Make sure that that's not impacting our families. I want to give kudos to Patrice. Another fantastic meeting online, virtually, and this one went so well. I do think that Patrice is going to suggest that we do this all the time.
Okay, I'm laughing.
Speaking of that, Mr. Mayor, my question is we've been having the special meetings on the off weeks. So our next regular meeting is in 2 weeks on the 20th. Does the council wish to have another special meeting next Monday, the 13th at 6?
I posed that question to my council. Anyone want to chime in?
Well, what do you think, Drew? I mean, is this something that helps you? Because I mean, it was my understanding that we're mostly, well, it was mostly to help you, support you, give you whatever you need. So is this something that you feel like would it be helpful to you?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like things are continuing to change pretty quickly, and every time we think we've got our footing underneath us, something else changes. So it has been helpful to get in front of you on a weekly basis to identify the changes we've made to the operation and get affirmation of that. So if the council's inclined, I'm certainly happy to have another meeting next Monday at 6.
There you go.
Eric is a yes.
Yep.
Anyone object to that?
I think I'm okay.
Okay. Rick's a yes. Diane's a yes. Ammo's a yes. I understand this meeting is 3 hours and 17 minutes now. We had a lot of things to get through, and we were able to get through it. I look forward to next week. Whatever has happened since today, making sure that we're listening to you, Drew, and approving whatever actions you've taken.
So, thank you. Mayor, if I
Yes,
could,
Rick.
I do have a couple of reports, short summary
Okay.
reports.
Any other reports and announcements? I'll tell you now that I'm going to be adjourning in honor of Art Lemper.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Thank you. My report has to do with Peninsula Clean Energy. We have decided to offer a $100 bill credit to our ratepayers who happen to be on the CARE and FARA programs, which are the low-income residents. So we're offering them all a $100 bill credit, and that's going to amount to a few million bucks, but we're taking care of that because it's COVID-19 right now. So regarding, I reported earlier on my activities with the Housing Methodology Committee, and very briefly on the Regional Planning Committee. On the Regional Planning Committee, we're doing Plan Bay Area 2050. And it's an ongoing process. It's going to be final, actually, in a couple of years. And we started over every 4 years. But we're working through the process of working on sustainability, infrastructure, transportation, housing, equity, all the important things that we're working on. And if anybody's interested, I can give you a special private report. But Patrice told me I need a report on that because I get a stipend from the Housing Methodology Committee. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Rick. Anyone else have any reports and announcements? Okay. Tonight we're going to adjourn in memory of Art Lempert. Art passed away March 29th, 2020. He was born July 24th, 1929. Just an extraordinary San Mateo resident, extraordinary member of our community. He was brilliant, curious, and fearless. He leaves behind his wife of 65 years and former Mayor Sue Lempert. He also leaves behind his children and grandchildren, Robert Lempert, Nancy Perloff, Ben Lempert, Ted Lempert, Nicole Bergeron, Caroline, Veronica, and Julianne Lempert, Liz Lempert, Ken Norman, Maddie, and Ella Norman. He went to Cornell University. He went to Stanford Law School. He joined the Air Force during the Korean War. He and his wife, Sue, were absolutely amazing San Mateo residents and have given so much. Their family's given so much to the city of San Mateo, but also been very civically minded in other communities as well. He inspired the next generation and the generation after that, his children and grandchildren, to also serve their communities. He was a civil rights advocate, and he will be dearly, dearly missed. Our hearts go out to Sue, our former mayor, and the entire family. If you would please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you so much. We are adjourned.
Stay safe, everyone.
You too.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.